for more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery. Get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Godzilla vs. Kong? Stick around and find out. Bum, 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 bum. All right. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Play Productions. This is my uncut review of Godzilla vs. Kong. Whew, boy. Synopsis on IMDb reads, "The epic next chapter in the cinematic monsterverse pits two of the greatest icons in motion picture history against one another, the fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. Legends collide as Godzilla and Kong, the two most powerful forces of nature, clash on the big screen in a spectacular battle for the ages. As a squadron embarks on a perilous mission into fantastic uncharted terrain, unearthing clues to the Titan's very origins and mankind's survival, a conspiracy threatens to wipe the creatures, both good and bad, from the face of the earth forever." All right. I'm going to try not to make this too long. It's really easy to just kind of pile on something that you don't like because you feel like venting. But I'm going to try and rip this Band-Aid right off and be done quick as I can. Because frankly, I want to be done thinking about it and giving time to it. Now, the first two movies, Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of Monsters, I was surprised at how I liked each of them. Surprised because I could tell the filmmakers were trying to bring human drama into those stories, even though ultimately they're still about giant monsters, you know, and sometimes giant monsters fighting other giant monsters. They were trying to inject some human stakes and some human drama, some human emotions. They cast human actors that could act, at least a few in each of those movies. And so they were really going for something that was going to bring some substance to this genre that I have not known to be there in my admittedly limited exposure to it over the years. And so, yeah, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed and connected with those two movies. They weren't like these wonderful experiences for me, but they had more depth of emotion in the experience for me than I had expected. This one really fell short. Let me just talk about the vibe compared to the other two movies. It's a light tone, I would say, very light, with almost a children's movie kind of vibe to it in the way that kids are empowered, both a young elementary age child and then also like teenagers are empowered and wise, and the adults are at best ignorant of key information that children are alone capable of presenting and giving and discovering. They are, in worst cases, inept or just silly in at least one case. This movie has a shorter runtime than either of the two previous movies, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, you know, Zack Snyder's Justice League has been a big topic of conversation lately, and we saw in the theatrical release what happens when you have two movies lead up to a movie that introduces more characters but has a shorter runtime than either of the two movies that came before it. And so here we had these two characters, these two monsters, I guess, that I think needed more time. Well, maybe it wasn't that issue because they're not characters in the sense that human characters are. But in any case, I felt like they were just racing through the bare minimum of exposition to get to the sci-fi stuff and the monster fights. You know, we just barely touched on exposition elements and presenting the stakes. And then we just got through that as fast as we possibly could to see some monster action. The human drama that's in previous entries is replaced seemingly with fights and wise children and teens doing their thing and comedic bits. There's a seeming, I mean, it's been a while since I saw the last two movies, but there's a seeming leap forward in technology in this story where holograms and effectively spaceships are commonplace. And so are skyscraper monsters. You know, I mean, like, all the sense of awe that was present in the last Godzilla movie in particular for all those monsters that were showing up was just virtually absent in this movie. The story had a very predictable structure and an antagonist. You know, when you have two heroes, like in comic books, that have their own stories, their own franchises, and then you bring them together, it's a pretty predictable structure. They're going to fight each other, almost always based on some kind of misunderstanding. Eventually, they'll figure out that they are not the enemies of each other, and there is a third entity that rises up that is the true enemy that both of them have to team up and face together. So, I mean, that is like the textbook classic plot. And I don't fault this movie for using that. What I have a problem with is that it didn't add so many of the nice things that the last two movies did to a very heavily established kind of story. I was bored throughout by the almost complete lack of psychological realism among the human characters, casual familiarity with the otherworldly, undeveloped and unbelievable to me characters, and giant-sized action with stakes that might as well have been microscopic for how much I felt them. Sure, the humanity and the world is all at stake, but I didn't feel that at all. Now, as far as the cast and performances, they did bring back at least a couple of the actors present in previous movies that are known for their dramatic acting, their dramatic work. These are actors, you know, that you bring into a project to elevate it in terms of what they can do with their performances. And there were at least two of those actors that were present and accounted for, but it felt like there was just a box being checked. They were given nothing of dramatic substance to work with. One of them was barely in the movie at all. He was in the beginning, he reappeared at the end, and the rest of it focused on his daughter out doing teenage things and being super over empowered. As far as the stunts and visuals, hey, CG, lots of CG, and I don't want to, you know, I have an eye that's cursed to pick out CG. More than just pick it out. It just seems to like glaringly present itself to me, especially when it's representing organic creatures, organic life of some kind. And, you know, I don't want to just kind of dismiss the fact that here we have these classic movie monsters, huge franchise history for each of them in motion picture history, and they are being brought together in this massive clash in a way that hasn't happened, well, I don't want to say ever. I think there has been a movie with King Kong versus Godzilla, but it's been so long. And what was possible with visual effects back when it was done the first time, it's like night and day to what we see in this movie. So here's what I'll say. The visual effects looks like a bunch of CG, a bunch of highly detailed cartoons, nothing really appealing to me. However, I think for this kind of movie, there may be some fans out there that really all they want is to see these titans of film history go up against each other with the modern visual effects treatment given to them. And you will get that. You will get that. If that is what you want to, the box that you want to check, and that will give you a good time, then that's awesome. And I don't knock anybody who just wants that and can be pleased with just that. I think they'll get that with this movie. Now, as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, spiritual significance going on in the themes that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? I don't think so. For me, painful movie experiences only make me think about how much I want it to be over. The savior metaphor that was that was in the previous Godzilla movie, and I think to some degree present in the last King Kong movie as well, those seem to be gone. They didn't seem interested in treading that ground again. And I think there's nothing here that's likely to trigger worthwhile thought. It is just kind of like that fan experience of seeing these two action figures get bashed up against each other with the full CG treatment. Now, I have no idea what your tastes and preferences are in movies, but if I were a time traveler to go back in time and say, Raider, oh man. Skip this one. Just skip it. The last two were delightful surprises for you. This one, unfortunately, falls perfectly into the negative stereotype you have in your head for giant monster movies. Just being very substanceless in terms of the story and the drama of it. And just all about the fight with the visual effects that are not going to impress you. It may delight genre fans for the fact that that's in its essence what it is, but it's not remotely something that you're going to enjoy. This one is rated PG-13 for intense sequences of creature violence / destruction and brief language. All right, those are my thoughts. Would love to get yours in the comments below. I'd like to hear from fans of these classic characters, and if this was what you wanted, if this scratched the itch for you. If so, I would love to hear that. That would be really cool and kind of encouraging. Hopefully fans of this genre did not have the experience that I had watching it. So would love to hear from you and anybody else for that matter. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review and so many other reviews of mine possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. And then, as always, I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. The Christian Geek Central podcast is the longest-running podcast for Christian geeks with over 600 weekly episodes and counting, featuring audio versions of much of the same content you'll find here, plus exclusive content including weekly news updates from the creators of Christian comics, novels, and video games, debriefing and commentary about what I've been playing, reading, and watching, and my expanded responses to your comments and questions via YouTube, email, or the Christian Geek Central forums. And now, with timestamps, so you can jump straight to the segments you want to hear most. Get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services, and enjoy one more way you can geek out and seek the truth.